Yeah, the first poem I want to read is sort of inspired by my trip to Ireland, and also from a workshop that I was at that Hannah did at Aroma in Crystal Lake. On this tour, it was a music and history archaeological kind of tour. One of the places pubs that we went to, one of the families that was playing at the pub, their son, who was there, is in the touring company of Riverdance. A young man named Thomas O'Shea, who as a 13-year-old was like the national Irish step dance champion. And while we were listening, after we were listening to them, and Thomas is going to show us a few steps, I was sitting in the front of these 19 people, and he invited me up. So I am bragging about I took one lesson with a guy from Riverdance. With the first notes, her feet began to tap. First her toes, then the tap of her heel, then the bending of her knees, until she was out of her chair, swinging, swaying, lost in the sounds, spinning, swinging, swaying, boots tapping out the rhythm to the fiddle and guitar. A dark-haired man placed a warm hand on her elbow and spun her out into the night. Together they floated away on the notes. Thank you. And I was asked to contribute a poem for an art exhibit for the Hackmatack Natural Wildlife Area. They will be doing an exhibit of artwork and written word, I think the second week in November at the Dole Mansion. I grew up right on the Nippersink Creek. My parents lived there from 1952 until my mom passed away in 2020. So the creek was a big part of my growing up. So I wrote a short poem about that. Banks of the Nippersink. On the banks of the Nippersink, I explored the lush, wet woods, ran across the railroad bridge, over the water, and down the embankment, down to that lush ground covered with purple and white violets. Like the violets, I grew up gentle but resilient. I have spent a lifetime making my home in places where violets make their stand. I hear the gentle whisper of the Nippersink when I look out my window at the violets in my yard. I smell the wet woods, and I am a child again. Thank you. And in keeping with the season, the Atrocious Poets, who are a poetry group here in the Woodstock area, just did a workshop on You Are a Monster, and who is your monster? So I've written a poem about my monster. Darkness beyond the light. Silken voice whispers in my ear, soundless, scentless. Until then, I would recognize his voice anywhere, anytime. Cold lips brush against my cheek. With a slow turn, we are face to face. He looks exactly as he has for decades. Dark, tall, velvet suit, high white collar framing that alabaster throat. He is like a rumor that comes back around, believed in, but never proven with any certainty. When a young girl, I claimed him as my private monster, my joy, my sorrow, my fear. How does he know when I have reached the edge? How does he know my fear of falling from desperate heights, either physically or emotionally? How has he always known? Once again, he will wrap that velvet arm around me and place me on firm ground. I turn. In turn, I have always known what he will need from me. We have danced this dance on the edge for so long, no words are needed. He will save me from myself, and in exchange, I will turn a willing throat to his soft, cold lips. Thank you.